話が早い。お、ゾーン系古代種か。珍しいじゃねえか。
Yo, what is up, people? It is Farrah here. Now, before I start the video, I want you guys to hit that notification bell because I got some people in the last video in the comment section saying they didn't see my last video pop up in their sub box. So, definitely hit that bell so you get a notification when I upload a video and be a part of the notification squad. So yeah, let's go. And so today we're going to be talking about X Drake potentially being the strongest supernova. And people, I did not come here without facts and evidence to back myself up with. This will probably be a bit controversial because a lot of people have Luffy, Kid, and Law as the strongest because of how Oda highlighted him. But I mean, after finding out that UROUGE defeated a top Yonko commander, that was a shock to the community. And UROUGE, who was known as the lamest supernova with like one of the lowest bounty, defeated a Yonko commander. At that time it was kind of crazy. So at this point in the series, we shouldn't underestimate the other supernovas and give all the glory to Kid, Law, and Luffy. The other ones are just as hacks as the main three we know of. But yeah, let's talk about X Drake. First, we're gonna talk about his feats. Now, I personally think X Drake was one of the most impressive supernovas at Sabaody. Granted that UROUGE was the only one capable of fighting a pacifist one-on-one, but he never managed to hurt it like X Drake did, including the fact that his physical base stats were strong enough to send a pacifist flying towards a building with just a couple of blows. He also stopped the clash between two supernovas. On the right hand he had Killer, and on the left hand he had God UROUGE, which a lot of people think is the strongest supernova today. Now, the thing that shocks me the most is that while every other supernova was seemingly pulling off their best attacks, Luffy's elephant gun, Kid's metal arm, and everything, well, not everybody used their best stuff, but we're just going off by what we saw. And the shock is that X Drake was in his full Zoan form transformation. Now, throughout the entire series, we've seen how useless the full transformation are. I mean, in the whole Rob Lucci versus Luffy fight, Lucci only used his full transformation once throughout the entire battle because of how difficult or awkward it would be for battle. And it's the same with Jack. Jack concluded that his full human form transformation would be better match for Inuarashi and Nekomamushi. And I feel like that's something Oda has shown us throughout the entire series. It's like a theme in a way. Full Zoan transformation is not where it's at, basically. So going back to Drake, if this man was capable of hurting a pacifist in his quote-unquote useless transformation, then how powerful would his hybrid form be? And again, mind you, this isn't a regular Zoan like the others. This is a carnivorous ancient Zoan, a Zoan that is well accustomed to combat or fights. And people might bring up maybe he didn't learn his hybrid transformation, and the thing with that is that it's impossible for a kid to be called the strongest out of a crew of grown men. Now, if you remember in the flashback, Drake's dad called Drake to be the strongest out of all of them, but he was a coward, kind of giving us a hint that he might have had his devil fruit at a very young age. And granted, this was 13 years ago, so it's a while. So I refuse to believe that in those 13 years of being a Navy officer, a pirate, he didn't learn his hybrid form. I definitely think he learned it. And if not for Kizaru showing up as Sabaody, I definitely think he could have defeated the pacifista by himself. And apart from his Zoan abilities, we also have to recognize that this man is about 33 years old. That's basically prime age. Well, the way I see it is that prime is about from like 30 to like 60. 60 is kind of a reach, but it's technically still prime. So at this point in the story, he's probably reaching the peak of his durability and physical strength, and all of this is then amplified by his Zoan devil fruit even further. So in terms of durability and physical strength, I think he's up there with Gear 4th Luffy and maybe like whatever UROUGE has packing. I don't know what he has, but again, I'm just talking about physical strength. Also, we have to talk about his skill set. Before becoming a pirate, X Drake was a Navy officer that attained the rank of Rear Admiral. And people might say that's even weaker than Vice Admirals. And these Vice Admirals are getting tossed around like babies. But we all know it's levels to this shit. Like, Vice Admirals vary in power. We can go all the way from Bastille to Virgo to Garp, who is like Admiral level. And this probably applies to other classes as well, Captain, Rear Admiral, a ship's boy, you know, all of that stuff. For example, Kobe is a captain, but I think he is by far one of the strongest captains in the Marines at the moment. And it could be the same thing with Drake, where you know, he was a rare admiral, but he was one of the high tier rare admirals. And in regards to the whole, you know, rare admiral level, in the past, one of the reasons that Jinbei became a Shichibukai was because he tussled and defeated a rare admiral. I think it was rare admiral Strawberry. And after that whole incident with Fisher Tiger, that's when they gave him the Shichibukai status. I mean, granted, he did lose to Jinbei and all of it, but my point still stands. And you know, X Drake being at that top end, you know, rare admiral level, he must also have Rokushiki in his skill sets, you know. So Tekkai, Soru, Shigan, Geppo, you know, all of that stuff, the 6 powers. So he has Rokushiki, Ancient Zoan, and probably decent Haki. Like, imagine a combination he could possibly do with all of this at his disposal. His base form might be similar to Virgo, to be further enhanced by his hybrid form, which increases your base several times over. Imagine a T-Rex hybrid form, like in full Haki, with Rokushiki just jumping around in full with Tekkai and all of these abilities. That would be, that's just crazy to me. I don't understand how people can sleep on this man. I think people sleep on zones a lot, and I think Oda is going to show what like these zones are going to be capable of doing in the future, and it's going to be crazy. I think he's going to do with Jack and Kaido, and maybe the other calamities, and maybe with X-Drake as well. And finally, we have his history. Now, at the end of Marineford, when we saw all the supernovas in the New World doing their thing, X-Drake was the first person, like after the war, he was the first person to start messing with a Yonko. And Kaido on top of that, you know, the strongest creature. You know, while them kid were like killing pirates, Luffy was having his second time skip. This man was already trying to mess with a Yonko, and you know, somehow he ended up joining Kaido's crew within those 2 years. Again, we don't know how that whole situation with him and Scotch went on, but it seems like Kaido took a liking to X-Drake, not only because he was a rare ancient Zoan, and you know, Kaido wants like only Zoans in his crew because he has this dream of like building the strongest Zoan crew, but because X-Drake was actually strong. Again, Kaido is the same individual that called Dofi weak, but I'm not saying, you know, X-Drake is stronger than Dofi or anything like that, but I'm saying like he probably saw some potential in X-Drake. If anything, amongst Kaido's calamities, he's probably on the level right under them. I personally don't think he's a calamity, because you know, calamities are like Kaido's trusted commanders, and you know, if X-Drake was capable of becoming a trusted right hand, and then he would be definitely a fucking the strongest supernova, because he's Yonko commander level. But I don't think that's the case here, but I do think he might possibly be the strongest supernova. And there's also a theory that goes by, you know, the card theme Kaido's crew already has. You know, at the top is Kaido, then we have King, Queen, then Jack, then X. You know, I think Drake's name is DS Drake, and I think that's like 10 in Spanish, and he also has an X on his chest, which could mean he's like the card number 10. So you know, that puts him on that under the calamity level, and there could be more connections there. So let's wrap this up again. X-Drake being a rare admiral, being at his prime right now, has a rare Zoan Devil Fruit, one of the most impressive supernovas at Sabaody, having Rokushiki as a skill set, decent Haki, and was the first supernova to mess with a Yonko, and was successfully recruited by the Yonko. In this case, it's Kaido. So you know, taking all of that into consideration, I don't think it's too far-fetched to think X-Drake could be or is the strongest supernova. You know, I think Kid, Luffy, Law, X-Drake, and Hawkins, I think those guys are like the top 5 for me, because back in Sabaody, I think Shaki highlighted the 5 that were like causing the most problems. I feel like that's Oda's way of showing like who the 5 strongest are. But yeah, do you guys think X-Drake is the strongest supernova, or do you think he's top 5? Just comment down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe. It is Pharaoh, and I will see you guys later. Peace.